Good evening. You guys hear me okay? I'd like to welcome everybody to the Scottsdale Unified School District Governing Board meeting. Welcome back for Happy New Year. And at this time, Mrs. Kirby, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? And if we could have a roll call, please.
Pam Kirby.
Kim Hartman.
George Jackson.
Barbara Perleberg.
And Bonnie Sneed. All members are present, and we have a quorum. The first item is approval of the agenda.
I move to approve the agenda as submitted.
Do we have a second?
I will second. Oh,
sorry. Okay. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. That motion passes 5-0. And Dr. Birdwell, students and staff recognitions and celebrations.
Yes, at this time, I'd welcome Dr. Sakos up to the mic to hand out some wonderful foundation awards.
Good evening, Madam President, members. Cossiter from Laguna. Bonnie Kirsch, Special Education from Chaparral. Carolyn Hand and Lori Sobel from Redfield. Linda Tardy from Hohokam. Rachel Shama and Amy Palatucci, Chaparral. Our very own principal of Anasazi, Gretchen Kaiser. Laura Vector from Desert Canyon Elementary. And Matt Lenz from the Exceptional Student Services Department. Angela Berry, Tonalea. And Jeff Waldron, or Jen Waldron from Redfield. Sorry, Jen.
Thank you, Dr. Sakos, and thank you, Governing Board, for allowing us this brief time in the agenda this evening. I just want to add my congratulations to the grant recipients. We hope that you'll use these funds to acquire resources that you wouldn't otherwise be able to have and use them to inspire students in new and different ways. So enjoy those, and we look forward to hearing from you on how those projects go. And now we're going to step outside for a photo. Right? Thank you.
Well, while they make their way out, let me just say that it is an honor and a pleasure to have such an outstanding foundation in Scottsdale. Truly, educational foundations make a significant difference, not only in the lives of our students, but the lives of our teachers. So thank you so much for the work that you do and the continued support of the Scottsdale District. Now, Dr. Van Ichten is going to come on up, and we have a couple of secondary, well, one secondary and one middle school award this evening.
Good evening. Thank you very much, Dr. Birdwell. Madam President and Governing Board members, we have some awards. If I could have Laura Tuttleman of Desert Mountain High School and perhaps Principal Wilford join me at the podium. Oh, there she is. Welcome. Laura Tuttleman is a Desert Mountain High School senior and was notified that she won a National Scholastic Art and Writing Award. Laura received her award for a painting titled Self-Reflection. Laura was one of only 8 students in Arizona that received this honor. So congratulations, Laura. And next, if I could have Principal Huffman and I believe Sherry Stiegel of Social Studies Department at Cocopa. This is what it's all about. Excellence in Civic Engagement Program. Honor schools who take an active role in ensuring that students are informed and engaged citizens. Cocopah Middle School is proud to have received the honor of being named a School of Merit in the area of civic engagement and education, thanks in large part to the hard work of Sherry Stiegel and her social studies colleagues at Cocopah. Congratulations and thank you.
And now, Dr. McNeil with some elementary awards.
Madam President, governing board members, Dr. Birdwell and Sandra, I have the pleasure of having 2 awards tonight. I would ask that Bill Gardner from Tonalea, the K-8, come on up, and Principal Hammond, please. All right, Bill Gardner was selected by Earthwatch Institute to participate in an ongoing science research project in July. The project was at Sage Hen Research Station in the Sierra Nevada mountains and was an ongoing study in the high Sierra Meadows, the changes in these areas and the impact on California's water supply. Wow, that's deep. Bill will be incorporating the information he has learned into his students' curriculum as we move forward within the science curriculum at Tonalea. Thanks, Bill, for representing Scottsdale so greatly. Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
All right, next I would like Principal Kinghorn and 4th grade teacher Holly Hooley to come to the stage, please.
You're here. You are here.
All right. Holly Hooley, a 4th grade teacher at Desert Canyon Elementary School, was chosen to participate in the Mickelson Exxon Mobile Teacher Academy. This is a huge honor. The program equips teachers in grades 3 through 5 with the ways to inspire students in math and science. Of the 1,200 teachers who applied, Holly was only one of 150 teachers selected to participate in the program. Nice job, Holly.
And since it's the beginning of the school year, that is the end of the celebrations for this evening.
Recognitions. Did I forget that? The next item on the agenda is public comments. Comments are limited to 3 minutes, and if anybody has comment, there are cards in the back that you can fill out, and please present them. Let's see, the white ones are for non-agenda items, and the blue ones are for agenda items. First, we have Richard and Robert Reed.
Good evening, my name is Richard Reed, this is my son Robert. On your agenda tonight, under the actions hearing, is the pending expulsion of my son Robert. What I wanted to say is not going to happen in 3 minutes. But if you've all read my report, has everybody read my report involving my son? Yes? No, I'm asking, has everybody read the report involving my son?
We can't respond.
Pardon me?
We can't respond at this time. Your comments are for your 3 minutes. That's what this is
Okay.
set aside for. Thank you.
I understand that you can't respond. My son has something to say. Watch your mouth.
I'd like to say, first of all, I'm sorry. I walked onto an SUSD campus with a tobacco product. That's what it was. That's what originally got me suspended, just for a 5-day period. My actions blew that way out of proportion, way more than it should have been for a 5-day suspension. I was unaware that I'm not allowed to go to my friend's dance recital. I did not read that on the contract, and it was my wrongdoing that I went to the dance concert when I was not supposed to be on an SUSD campus. And I do, however, believe that my wrong actions don't justify someone else's. And a teacher, vice principal, grabbing me on the arm out of a crowd, yanking me, telling me I'm expelled, and she doesn't have that jurisdiction. I do apologize for acting out at that. But like I said, I don't think my wrong actions justify someone else's. And I would like to say that if you could please not expel me, because that is probably one of the worst things I could have on my record. I'm a year behind now. They took all my credits, and I'm in the process rebuilding that, and I'm going to a charter, making up everything. And if I ever have any intentions to get into a university, which I do, then I can't have that on my record with all this. Thank you very much.
That was pretty much my intent to come down here. I would also like the Scottsdale Unified School District to know that it takes two people to tango. My son treats people the way they treat him. And so I feel that the Scottsdale Unified School District was culpable in this. And what I'm asking is that you take a look at his expulsion and we can come to a mutual agreement. I will not enroll my son in a Scottsdale school district in the next 365 days, and you not expel him officially so we can keep this off his record. Please read the report. Thank you very much.
Amy Richard.
Pardon me?
Can I speak briefly?
There's a process.
That's what I just want to let him know.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Melissa will talk.
Hello, everybody. Thankfully, I'm here for pretty good news. Every mother's worst nightmare happened on Friday when my daughter decided not to come home after school. And after going through the list of all of her friends, we came up empty and had to call the police. And Dr. Pradinsky and Dr. Birdwell showed up at our doorstep and stayed with us and worked with the police and her staff to find her, because we found her because they went through all the tapes for the videos for the buses and found her on that, and then found somebody with her. So, I mean, this was a total team effort, and she went way beyond the call of duty. She stayed there till that girl was in my arms, and that was at 10:30 at night. So she'd been missing for 8 hours. So, and I don't think we would have been able to have anywhere near as much success in finding her if it hadn't been for you and Dr. Pradinsky. And I would just want to thank you both so much, and all the rest of you. I know you guys were all worried about her and this kind of stuff, so yes. She is home safe and very grounded. Thank you.
Bonnie Bison.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, and Dr. Birdwell and Sandra. My name is Bonnie Bison, and I teach at Kiva Elementary. I teach music. I'm also the secretary for our SEA. I stood before this board last year at about this time to speak to my experience as a specials teacher regarding the testing difficulties experienced by my third grade students. At that time, I had corresponded with my administrators, district personnel, and all of my colleagues to look for better solutions. Yet a year later, I find myself in the exact same position of dissatisfaction with the testing process, with nothing changed. I have two issues. First, because bubble sheets are no longer the standard in our industry, many third grade students have never experienced this testing model. Despite diligent modeling, training, and proctoring, 8.4% of my, well, it's probably, I don't think there's a 0.4% of a student, but 8.4% of my students had tracking issues and were unable to successfully navigate the pretest. They ended up filling in answer bubbles for the wrong questions. My second issue is the length of the test. There are 45 questions on the third grade music test. From what I understand, AZ Merit and other standardized tests have about half as many questions per section. 28% of my students were unable to finish their test in the time allotted. To me, this is inefficient. I understand that we have to have a certain number of questions per standard, but are there other solutions? A two-part test, or perhaps the test would go more quickly if it were not paper pencil. Today, my husband sent me David Brooks's column from the New York Times talking about a career versus a vocation. Brooks writes, "A career is something you choose. A vocation is something you're called to. A vocation involves falling in love with something, having a conviction about it, and making it part of your personal identity." Brooks writes, "People with a vocation mindset have their eyes fixed on the long game. They are willing to throw themselves towards their goals imaginatively, boldly, and remorselessly. People who operate with a career mindset, on the other hand, often put self-preservation above all. Nothing gets done because everybody is doing the same old, safe, rigid thing." I know we have many people in this room and in this district for whom education is our vocation. It's the thing we can't not do, and I apologize for the double negative. So I apologize for standing up here with the exact same student-centered issues I had last year, but I stand here because I think there's a better way. I know this one issue is small peanuts. This is not a big thing. And I promise I'm fighting for the big issues too, but I can't not look for a better solution. It doesn't have to be my solution, but what I'm asking you is to work with us to come up with more efficient solutions when we come to you with problems. Thank you.
Josh Pantier.
Hi, everybody. I didn't write it down, so it's going to be pretty quick, I think. I just wanted to say thank you for directing the Prop 123 monies the way they were directed at the end of last year. The chunk of money we got over the summer was much appreciated, helped us get through a long summer. And then we got our salary notices, I don't even remember when, either the week before school or the first week of school. And for the first time in a long time, I looked at the number on it, and I felt like we're getting somewhere. And it really felt good to me. So I just want to say thank you for that. And in terms of meet and confer, looking forward to the process this year. I know we've got some new players in town this time around, so we'll see how it goes. And we'll see you the rest of the year.
And the last card that we have is Julie Siniowski.
Hi. Good evening, guys. As a proud Scottsdale teacher, parent, and an education advocate, I am deeply committed to the success of every student. There are a few key elements that promote success in our schools, and I'd like for all of us to carefully consider these. Number one is opportunity. All students, regardless of their background or zip code, deserve the support, tools, and time to learn. All teachers need the support to be able to work one-on-one with every student every day. Number two, student success. A true education inspires students' natural curiosity, imagination, and desire to continue learning. Students are not test scorers. Teachers are not test scorers either. These should be used only as informative means to enhance instruction. Number three, quality. We must ensure that every student has a caring, qualified, committed, certificated, and supported teacher. As we in Scottsdale make plans to enhance every student's success, we need to keep in mind that the center point of every student's success is the teacher. We must continue to be conscientious of the teacher's needs in regards to time, resources available to them, support afforded them, small class sizes to support the necessary one-on-one time with all students, and the ability for the teacher to make an honest living working one professional job. We cannot expect our students to be successful if our teachers are not the best they can be. Let's continue to look for ways to support our teachers in their efforts to support their students. Let's try to say yes more often than we use no. Let's ask for and support the creative ideas teachers have to teach their students meaningful life lessons. Let's be mindful of the best practices rather than the financially motivated limitations. Our Scottsdale Education Association promotes best instructional practices and supports training and retaining the best teachers. Our SEA is committed to our students. Our Scottsdale community must be committed to make decisions which supports the best interest of every student every day. Many opportunities to show this support are right before us. Our upcoming bond and override, the electing of public officials who support our mission. Here are just a few key points. We must be willing to invest in our learning communities for all of our students, our teachers, and our future. I want to also add that I appreciate the decisions which you have made to support our teachers, students, and our communities, and we need to continue this work towards furthering these goals. Thank you.
Thank you. Superintendent comments are next.
Well, welcome back. It's a new school year, and we're happy to be back. I will say that we had learning community welcome back events and governing board. I know it was a difficult time, and I want you to know that the teachers were very excited to welcome our students back. Our administrators are ready for the challenges that sit in front of them. We are truly blessed to have good educators in the Scottsdale district, so it was my pleasure to welcome them back. We have a few comments we want to bring forward just to make some announcements. Before I go any further, though, if I could get James Dorr, if he's still in the room, because he's kind of a shy guy. James, I have a note here from Officer Coffey, and he was with us on Friday night. This was in a large part to an amazing professionalism and teamwork of James Dorr and Jack Taylor responding to the bus to pull the video, and it was a phenomenal idea. This gave us another investigative route, a road to follow. Without this lead in being able to see our young student on the bus, I won't use your name because I don't have your permission, and identify where she got off and with whom, I do not believe we would have located her until she decided to come home, probably that evening or maybe the next day. I want you to know that I am truly grateful to the principal, to James, and to Jack, and to you for responding, for assisting us. James is an amazing asset, and we have a great team and a working relationship with SUSD and SPD. I want to thank you, James, in this community and from the community, that you always step up on behalf of children. Thank you very much. Also like to honor 8 of our students' awards for the National Merit Scholarships. This year, the Scottsdale Unified School District has 16 finalists in the 61st Annual National Merit Scholarship Program, and 8 of our finalists earned National Merit Scholarships. We're very proud of these finalists, and we'll be tracking to see how they do as we go forward. Just a little celebration for the Tonalea community. We had the Tonalea K-8 barbecue. We had a great turnout. Want to thank those principals for all of the extraordinary work that they did to bring the community together for successful reuniting of our teachers and our families. So again, kudos to the principals. Also this summer, while we were out, 61,000 free meals were served this summer under the federal funded summer food program. So for our food service program, stand up, be recognized. Your team does an outstanding job. And over 6,500 students participated in summer programs. And so we had 2,089 students who attended the high school online summer school. We had 1,056 students who attended the high school summer school at Coronado. 310 of our youth attended our kids club camps. 50 youth attended our early childhood camps, and 2,100 students attended our athletic and enrichment camps. And 971 students participated in our 21st Century Grant great schools program. So lots happening. And if you can recall, we also had a summer bridge program. So this summer, SUSD hosted both a middle and a high school summer bridge program. This was the second year that the middle school program was offered and was made available to middle school students who did not meet the academic success in 2015-16 school year. Students that would benefit from intervention support were identified, and using the factors of a teacher recommendation, their math course grades, benchmarks, and state scores, and they got a little help in mathematics this summer, and that was excellent. Also, I'm going to make a quick announcement that I have the honor to speak on behalf of the school district August 30th at Sky Song for the bus for our business education breakfast, 7:30 to 9 o'clock, also joined by the Scottsdale Community College president and a guest speaker. And we'll be talking about career and college readiness. Hope if you haven't signed up that you'll attend. It will be a great event. I think we have 200 people signed up already, so it's going to be a wonderful event for Scottsdale. We had new teacher orientation, and Dr. Sitton, 100 and how many new teachers did we? 160 was a 166. So a great number of new teachers that we took through orientation. Covering the basis back to school 2016, Wednesday on July 27th. Concerned Citizens for Community Health, along with Vista del Camino and the City of Scottsdale and the district. Then with civic, faith, and business leaders, provided nearly 1,000 children with backpacks, school supplies, clothing, socks, shoes, etc., to get them off to on the right step for the beginning of school. And we got to go down and be part of that process. And again, I have to tell you, it is amazing and was really, really wonderful to see the looks on the faces of children and parents as they received those backpacks and got to pick out the clothes and the shoes and the socks and know that the first day of school that they just blended right in with all of their children. So I just think it's a great service. We have 7 new principals. If you're new to the Scottsdale School District, would you please stand up, principals? I believe they are here this evening. 7 new principals, 8 new assistant principals. Thank you for standing up and being recognized. We appreciate your leadership. We had a lot of open houses and back to school nights, again, inviting families in to be comfortable, get to meet the teacher, meet the administrators, get comfortable with new campuses. Very excited about those as we go forward as well. And again, we have the SUSD Foundation Gala that is coming up, or Gala, and that's going to be September 10th. I want you to know that my birthday is September 11th, so we will be celebrating on September 10th at the Gala. I'm looking forward to that. It's at the Phoenician Resort in Scottsdale, where we get to honor some Scottsdale graduates and the great achievements that they have made, as well as some current students and teachers in our district. So really a wonderful night of celebration. Hope that you can make that. And don't forget, we'll be dual celebrating that night, my birthday as well. Since 9/11, I've moved it to the 10th. And finally, we have the Scottsdale Showcase coming up on October 22nd, so mark that calendar early from 10 to 1 at Cocopa Middle School. Again, the Showcase is a celebration of all the learning that takes place in our Scottsdale schools. All of our 30 schools will be on hand to connect with the community and share the wonderful programs they have to offer, the robotics, the academics, the arts, the athletics. We look forward to showcasing what it is that we do. And final words from the superintendent. I just want you to know it's an honor and a privilege to be here this year at the start of the year. It's been a new experience because I wasn't here last year at the start. Again, we have eager, hungry employees willing to do what they need to do to meet the needs of students, and so it is an honor and a privilege to lead this school district, and I thank you for that opportunity.
Thank you, Dr. Birdwell. The next item on the agenda is approval of the consent agenda. Do you have a motion?
I'll move to approve the consent agenda as submitted.
Second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 That motion passes 5-0. Next item on our agenda this evening is information discussion, item 8A, Scottsdale Unified School District AZ Merit Historical Trends Update. Okay.
think we should just leave the baby picture up there. Now, Kyle, are you running getting us up, and is it up here? On the desktop? Okay, thank you, Kyle, appreciate it. Wasn't sure where they had loaded that. So, governing board, community, I leave the dais to come over here to have a conversation about my favorite topic. I even have a whiteboard in the hallway in case we get to do a little teaching a little later. So if we need that, I'll actually bring out the whiteboard. But let me just say that I appreciate an opportunity to have a frank and transparent conversation with the governing board about the learning of Scottsdale assessment and AZ Merit. We're only in year 2 of AZ Merit, so although one might say we don't have a lot of longitudinal data, there is the ability to create longitudinal data from the AZ Merit also looking back. We do look back for particular reasons, and it helps us to be able to look forward to see where we're going. So I appreciate the opportunity to have a frank conversation. It is not a common practice in our field to be so transparent, and that's a shame. I've always made it a point when I talk with a governing board in a community that the facts are what the facts are. We can't go forward if we don't understand current reality. And current reality is just that. It's where we are today. It's what we know about where we are today. And if we follow the practice of looking at where are we can set the target to where we need to be. So before we can develop SMART goals to really get us where we want to be on our journey, we have to truly understand that which sits in front of us today. And we are in that discovery process during the month of August and September. At the end of that process, we will be bringing you the SMART goals that come from teachers and building level principals in order to move us forward. But first, we have to understand the data, research it, dissect it, analyze it to make some determinations. So tonight, Dr. McCauley is going to present some data to our governing board. I'm going to tell you that after 6 short months, and maybe on month 7, I stopped counting after 6 months. I ain't coming back. It's just another day, and I enjoy the next day. But I am confident that I can draw some conclusions for us about the systems in the Scottsdale district. The first system for discussion this year is going to be probably the most critical system in any school district, the learning system. My analysis over the last 6 months is that our district is very program heavy, very intervention heavy, and less instructionally focused. And I will explain that over the next few times as we look at this data. Is that right or wrong? That doesn't matter. What matters is where are we today and how do we move forward? I think that that's the piece to take away from that conclusion. In order to move us in the right direction, however, we have to shift the lens to a laser-like focus on learning. We need to get down to the individual student learning in a classroom and understand, are we meeting their needs? Again, with all transparency, Scottsdale's historical assessment data is important to look at. I don't think we should shy away from the fact that it is our reality, and I am not here to shame or blame or to say the people that came before didn't do it right, because that's not what I'm here for. What I'm here for is to analyze where we are to say where it is that we need to go. What I do know is that Scottsdale should be a leader in the state of Arizona. What I do know is that we have pockets of that kind of instruction occurring in this district. What we look for, however, is consistency. We have the clientele, we have the teaching staff, but without the right focus, we don't end up where we should be, which is a leader in our state. And that's the piece that I'd like to make a difference in. So I take this as an opportunity. I look at it as a focus of where do we start in order to move us forward. I want to be upfront to say Scottsdale data is a little bit difficult. With all reason, because it sits in multiple different systems. You might have a piece of data that sits over in a software system that's used for special education, something different that sits over in a software system for discipline, another one that sits in our student information system, something that resides on the state database. What we need to be able to do is pull these pieces together so that you can look at the variables and how they interact and look at whether or not they have an impact on what we're doing. These critical identifiers, however, are important in databases. you should be able to query information out of your student information system that can say, well, are we closing the gap for a special needs child? Are we closing the gap for our ELL students? Are the top quartile of learners being challenged and moving forward? What about the next quartile? Are we doing as well with the highest achievers as we are with the lowest achievers? Those are the types of variables that we want to begin to pull out and to look at. So tonight you're getting the 30,000-foot view. I guarantee you going forward we're going to peel that onion back and really look at all the other pieces. Because then you set a goal for each of those areas. If the gap in special education is greater than that of a regular education student, you want to have a specific gap to begin, a specific goal to close that gap. And in the state of Arizona, what we're finding is special educational gaps have been narrowing. I dare say that in Scottsdale we're not there yet, but we will be. And I'm very optimistic about that. I'm going to turn this over to Dr. McCauley, let her show you some of the data, and then I'm going to come back and do a little closing and talk about more specifics about, okay, so what are we going to do about it? And that's the part that I'll come back in for. So Dr. McCauley, I'll let you talk about the data. I do want to layer this to say you do have a goal in this area. I found your history. So in 2014, you wrote a goal and you said, academic achievement, to establish high expectations for all stakeholders through a commitment to increase academic rigor and relevance that instills a passion for lifelong learning. That's a really nice goal at a district level, but that will not move the needle.
So the first thing I want to talk about is the normal distribution. So here is your bell curve, and you can see what you have down there are your standard deviations, and you have right at the mean, and then you go +1, +2, +3, and on over. So what the normal distribution, what you can see there is if you look within one standard deviation of the mean, that comprises 68% of the values that are going to be in your data set. Okay, so as you get to 2 standard deviations below or above, now we're talking top and bottom 2%, and then when you get to 3 standard deviations, then we're talking top and bottom 1%. Okay, so needed you to know that part. So basically 68% are considered kind of average of those scores. I'm going to pull this out so I can find it easier. Okay, so the normal curve equivalent, these are normalized scores that place the values on a common equal interval scale, and that's key. I need it on an equal interval scale because then I can divide it, multiply it, add, subtract, and average it. I can't average percentile ranks. That's a big no-no in statistics because it's not on an equal interval scale. So that's why I like the normal curve equivalent. So what you need to know is the mean of normal curve equivalence, NCEs from heretofore, is 50. The standard deviation is 21.063. So if you're 1 standard deviation above the mean, you're at about 71. If you're 2 standard deviations, you're at 92. Okay? Everybody clear?
So far.
That was easy. See, statistics is for everybody. It's easy. It's not confusing at all.
For everybody.
Okay, so here are some, I'm a very honest person, so I'm not going to tell you I have this panacea for all the ills of the world called the NCE. So I'm going to talk to you about its advantages, but also its limitations. So the advantages is since it's on the equal interval scale, as I've already said, I can do a lot mathematically with it that I can't do with other types of scores. Normal distributions can be used to approximate multiple distributions in a large sample due to the central limit theorem. So as you have a large data set, it's going to regress to a mean, and it's going to theoretically be normally distributed regardless of its actual distribution, if that makes sense. It's the law of large numbers, okay? So scores from different scales then I can transform and put them together in a line, and then we can see up and down movement because they are on the same scale now. The limitations are that they're bound between 1 and 99. I can't go below 1 and I can't go below 99. The problem with that is as those z-scores go up above 2.333 infinitum, they exceed 99, or they go below 1. So I have to bind them. And so that can take a little precision out. But it all works out in the end because we get a 95% confidence interval that also is working for us along that central limit theorem, okay? The other thing is, if there's a spike in standard deviations from one year to the next, that could change what that NCE would be based on that, because if I have a larger denominator going into the numerator, it's going to change the outcome, obviously. So those are the limitations. They, we look at those if anytime anything looks weird, that we just drill right down to the raw element. Okay? I have not lost anybody yet. Yay. All right, so here we go. This is across all grade levels in ELA from 2005 to 2006, what our normal curve equivalent averages have been. And you can see there's some spikes here and there. We have some downward trending, and then in 2016, we start going back up again on that version of, or that administration of AZ Merit. So that's ELA. And this is district-wide, all grade levels. And here's our math. You can see there is a consistent downward trend in math relative to the state. The 50 average here is actually what the state is, and so the normal curve equivalent now has given us a point of reference relative to the state. So if we're above 50, we're above the state average. If we go below 50, we're below the state average. We never want to be below the state average. So here's our math. We were downward trending all the way to 2013. 2014 was pretty flat. It was a very slight increase again in 15, and then 16, again across all grade levels. We did have some standouts that I wanted to point out, that looking at where they started in 2005 and where they are now, we had some people that have really turned things around. Anasazi, as you can see here in 2005, in the low to mid 60s range, and boom, a standard deviation above the mean in this last administration of AZ Merit. Really proud of that. Hohokam, you see some weird hills there. It's like the streets of San Francisco. A little jagged, and then they've gone right back up, and they're higher than where they started. And so that's the other thing we look at, and you notice that also happened for Anasazi, higher than where they started 12 years ago. Pueblo, this trend is very interesting. You see the ELA steadily increasing from 2009 all the way to 2016. One slight little dip that probably can be eliminated, the dip, by standard error. We could probably say that was equal in that year. So all the way up to almost a full standard deviation above the mean, going from just being barely above the state average. And that's significant. Tavan was interesting because if you look at their longitudinal across grade levels, it looks very flat. But when you dig down and you go to the student level, what we found was that the kids are coming in very low. By third grade, they're getting them to the 20th NCE, the 30th, the 40th. By the time they leave them in 5th grade, they're up at about 55, above the state average, coming in almost a near standard deviation below to actually come up a little above it. And so that was really impressive. We do have some focus sites. We're going to dig into the data deeper to understand why these trends happened. But we just want you to know we are focusing on some folks. Tonalea, obviously, that one you're already aware of. That was the elementary. And if you look from where they started, they're, 3 below where they started way back in 2005, and almost 5 in math. Supai, you're also well aware of. Coronado, you can see kind of a spidery downward climb, continuing to trend down. Desert Mountain has had a little downward trend there too. Oh, there we go. I lost my place. Sorry about that. I'm going to open up another document so I can show you every single school now. Okay. So beginning with the K-5 elementaries, we've got Anasazi, the one that was pointed out as a standout. You can see where they started way back in 2005, ending standard deviation above the mean in 2016. Cherokee, also growing. We just have the 1 year of really high growth, so we're going to be taking a look at that. Is that an anomaly? What I do like there is that they're above where they started. So, and I can look at that and think, yeah, some of that will be captured by getting better at testing online, but since they're above where they started, there has to be some achievement happening as well. Cochise, again, a 1 year trend up. Above where they started way back when in ELA, still below where they began in math. Desert Canyon Elementary had some interesting, kind of got right back to where they were on Ames originally, or even at their highest point, and then really knocked it out in this last year again. The AZ merit data we only have 2 years of. It's not as stable because we don't have 3 to 4 years of it to know what was test effects, practice effects, being better at the online tools. So we're really trying not to interpret too much on the spikes that we see that are just 1 year spikes. Because as we've seen in the other historical data, you could have a 1 year spike that just goes down just as deeply in the next year. So we're being very careful about interpreting those single year spikes. Okay, Hohokam has seen some interesting growth and a little bit of a decline, some steady growth happening again, going back up in 15 and then really trending up in 16. Hopi, ELA, that looks very encouraging to me. I see we're above in ELA where we started and higher than we've ever been. Math is climbing. There's a bit of a gap, but they narrowed it in 16, between 16 and 15. As you can see, the angle of the very last line angling in toward the ELA. Kiva, this was amazing. This looks great. The continual upward climb there from 14 on. Weird little like jump rope looking data, but as long as it keeps going up, it'll become a J. Laguna, seeing some nice steady consistent growth from 2013 on in ELA. Math was trending down. We got it back up in 2016. So we're anxious to see what this year looks like for them. Navajo had some downward trends there 2 years in a row. Actually met with them today. They're already got plans, rearranged things to change that trend. Pima had Some downward trends, they were small, a little bit bigger between 14 and 15, trending back up in ELA, trending slightly back up from 15 to 16 in math, trying to recover from that big dip that happened between 14 and 15. And so again, we're anxious to see what happens with this year's data. Pueblo, this is the one that I showed you. We see this trend in 2009 on, just ELA has been racing toward the sky. Redfield, which I learned yesterday is still here. I had SUNY and Redfield mixed up. Yeah, they had the same entity ID. So, but Redfield was really, really flat. And then last year, I actually spoke with the principal, and she went in and got some individual plans on some kids, put them into practice. We went in kid by kid yesterday, and she actually got to see that what she put in place moved those kids. We got to drill down yesterday, very briefly. Sequoia, I'm not sure what happened there in the math. They're still above the state average. They came way back up, and we are going to be digging into that. We know that some schools that tested on computer in the first year didn't do as well, and they had this huge spike. Some we had reverse situations, so we'll be taking a look at that. But it looks like in ELA, they're on the right path. Tavon, remember I had mentioned they look a little bit flat, but when you drill down and you take it by, last year's 5th grade, the prior year's 5th grade, you see the same thing. They're starting really low with them, but then they're getting above the state average, which is a huge hurdle. When you're below the state average, it's a lot of gaps to try to mitigate there. Tonalea, I don't think we need to spend this much time there. Yavapai had some really nice growth there. They were a little bit stable in 15, from 14 to 15, but really grew last year. So again, I'm anxious to see, can we do that again? I like to see 3 years trending up, personally. I'll take 2 for now, but Cocopah was trending upward since 13, and then kind of flat in math, but still trending up in ELA. I had to run this one a few times because I kept thinking I made a mistake. This one baffles me. In 2005, on average, kids were above the state average, and just slowly but surely, they continued to just drop below their peers in the state. So we're going to figure out what's going on there. Cheyenne, trending up nicely in math and ELA. ELA was a little flat last year, but you can see that nice curve going up. Dr. Birdwell refers to the J curve a lot. I see that forming with their math. I think ELA, they can get that back up and just have a weird looking J with the 1 year. Copper Ridge, see it's kind of flat from 13 to 15, and then they trend up, still below where their highest point ever was and where they started, but again, another year, let's see what happens. Desert Canyon, creating a little rectangle there for you with a downward trend in math from 15 to 16, but a nice steep upward trend in ELA. Again, more years another year will give us a lot more information. Ingleside was trending up, and they had a little bit of flatness this year. Mojave Middle School, slight downward trend in ELA from 14 to 16, and then from 15 to 16 in math. Mountainside Middle School. You see this really nice, consistent trending up in math, and then they flattened out last year. You see another slight trending up in ELA from 12 to 15, and then they skyrocketed last year. So another interesting one to look at. SUPI. This is what I find interesting. When they score in the same relative to their peers in the state in ELA and math in a year. Arcadia High School. So Arcadia High School, beginning in 2009, started trending down in ELA and has continued ever since. Math was sort of on that trajectory, but then they did something here, came back down, flattened out, up, flat. Chaparral High School, again, trending down since 2010 in ELA. Got it up a little bit here, but went back down, and then here they end, about 8 points off from their highest point ever. Math, same sort of trend, but a deeper downturn here. So they have a lot further to go to get back up there. Coronado High School. We saw that they were starting to trend up and came back down. Desert Mountain. And then Saguaro High School. I'll leave that open. Now I'm going to come back to the PowerPoint that I inadvertently closed. Oh, I see what I did. I didn't know it was on a show. All right, I'll just get to. All right, so what's next? Well, we're going to do more digging. This was just the scratching of the surface. This is the iceberg, and it's only the top of the iceberg. We're going to get beneath the surface. We are going to identify variables that are correlated with those trends in order to build on those that have evidence of effectiveness and abandon those that don't. We're really going to be evaluating programs and looking at all of the different things that we have going on and putting them into the analyses and seeing if there's any statistical significance to those programs, positive, negative, or if they're just no effect at all. Then if it costs money, we maybe need to think about that. So some people have a honey-do list. I have a day-to-do list. Here's some variables, and this is by no means exhaustive. This is not an exhaustive list of variables that we want to investigate, but we want to see how our students with disabilities are growing, what their trends are, English learners, gifted learners. We want to look at, disaggregate along race and ethnicity, socioeconomic status, gender, neighborhood effects, and then we have the student and school variables. We're going to look at student achievement and look at the top quartile and the bottom quartile, in the middle 68%, right? So that we can figure out how everybody's trending. We're going to look at the marks earned, grades, in the grade book, and correlate those with AC merit scores. So we'll look at that. Other school effects, anything that's specific to a certain school. Open enrollment status, in district and out of district. So your in-district transfers and then your out of district, who's coming to us? How many years in the district? Is there a correlation between that? Does the coefficient go up or down the longer you're in our district? We're going to look at that. Programmatic changes. When was this program put in place or abandoned? When was this done? Leadership changes, we'll look at that, including superintendent changes. And then, of course, funding. As you know, we had a recession in 2008, and school funding diminished tremendously during that time, so we want to see how that impacted as well. Now, can we always find statistical significance? No. Sometimes I'm running it, and it's like, yeah, my finger was on the pulse, but it was beating fine. And then others will be our things we're going to have to tackle. Analyses. Okay, so now we've got the data built, we got to analyze it. Is this statistically significant? Some stuff I can eyeball and say, yeah, that's not even going to be statistically significant, it's way too marginal, but others, you just can't. And so we'll be doing tests of growth and significance, t-tests probably, which is a means comparison. There will be predictive modeling, which will help support principals and teachers by giving them information about how far a kid can stretch, and then that'll help them raise the rigor for the kids. So we will do hierarchical multiple linear regression, which will predict NCE or scale scores, whichever we decide to do. Binary logistic regression and predictive probability of success on the pass-fail, just 1-0 binary. And that'll be predictive of testing proficient or highly proficient, just passing yes or no. And then multinomial logistic regression and predictive probability of proficiency. So we can actually predict how somebody will score. What is their probability of scoring highly proficient, partially proficient? I can't predict minimally. It's a subtraction. They didn't qualify for partially or proficient or highly, then that's the only way to do it. Process of elimination. And that's it.
Okay, so now you know why we have psychometricians. I hope that what we glean from this, again, is the fact that this is just, it's our current reality. It's where we are. We learned some from looking at trend data. Let me just bring a couple other pieces out to talk about. You say, well, okay, Superintendent, hey, this has been going on for a long time. Why do you think you can make a difference? Well, first and foremost, I'm an instructional leader, and I understand instruction. And I have the greatest confidence that the principal sitting behind me can get it done. And I believe that they will rise up to the occasion of the challenge when they know what target am I supposed to focus on. We went through this a few years ago at the state level when they kept changing the state test, and we would head down a pathway and the teachers were ready and they were teaching appropriately, and then the test would move at the last minute, and we gave the wrong message to teachers. Well, that's not the case here. We know what it takes to raise student achievement. What we need to do is make sure that we set ourselves up for the best success. In my professional opinion, this trend can be shifted. And it can through the appropriate focus by setting the right academic goals. And to do that, it's having that right data to look at. Now, I'm going to say this. To make this type of significant shift, it is the stabilization of leadership with a clear vision. And I'm going to tell you that we've already been out talking in the culture with the schools and the teachers about we are in the business of education. Make it very clear that we educate. That is what we do, and we take it very serious, and we make sure that we understand that as a teacher in the classroom, that I engage, that I educate, and that I empower every student every day. Now we got to make sure that we meet that vision, and to do that, we have to identify, train, and support instructional leadership throughout the organization, and that means classroom teachers, to be great teacher leaders. It means building level principals. It means the district level leaders to lead instructional best practices. We have great managers. I'm not going to spend Scottsdale's dollars in creating better organizational managers. We're already there. We need to focus on instructional leadership, understanding what that means. So we must focus on first best instruction. And what that means is we are working with the teacher leaders and the building leaders to make sure that student learning is a priority. And Julie, thank you for setting that stage for me tonight, because she made some statements that I'm about to make. We need a learning culture that protects learning time and instructional time of teachers. When we pull kids out constantly out of the core teacher's classroom And we think we're doing best in them by pulling them out and giving them an intervention here and an intervention here. What we've done is take them out of the first best practice, the teacher who knows the child best and what they need to learn. We've got to slow down some of those interventions and focus back on that classroom teacher and support him or her in the work that she needs to do. Things like pre-tests that we heard from a teacher. Well, pre-tests are fine if they have a purpose. But if the only purpose is to address 301, that was the wrong purpose of the pretest. We need to get rid of that thing. And we need to do what's appropriate and look at the first quarter baseline data and then analyze it forward. So we've got some work to do in how we address 301. I hope next year that our teacher doesn't have to come and ask me why we were doing pretest. We need to remove barriers that distract us from the learning of students. And as I said, focus on instruction rather than intervention. First best instruction is placing an emphasis on the regular classroom teacher using best instructional practices aligned to the appropriate curriculum and assessment. Giving them the assessment in a timely manner to make the adjustments in instruction today. Teaching the teachers the difference between formative assessment and summative assessment and how to use formative assessment to drive learning. We do this through the appropriate policies and practices at the governing board level and the superintendent level that protects our teachers so they can teach, that empowers our administrators to guide and teach teachers the best practices. We do that by providing appropriate professional development, not professional development for the sake of professional development. That professional development needs to be focused on learning and the time for teachers, getting teachers together and providing that time for them to learn, share, and adjust instruction as a team. Where those third grade teachers come together and they look at that critical formative assessment and say, your students did really well in this area of learning, mine did poor, what did you do differently? Help me understand how you got that movement, that achievement. Looking at the kids in the lower quartile, the second quartile, the third quartile, and say, what are we doing differently for the students at these different levels? That's the work of teaching. And if we truly are going to meet our obligations of we educate, then we have to create a culture that is based around instructional practice. And when we do that, we will see improvement in achievement. I want to thank our principals for being courageous enough first to stand behind me today. Yes, I told them to be here. But I have to tell you, this is not, and pardon me, Governing Board, it is not simple, principals, to stand here today and have your data put up in front of the community and be courageous enough to say, we can make a difference when we stand together and stand with our teachers to address student learning. And I believe that you will do that, and I believe that you can do it. To do that, we have to empower these folks. We have to be open enough to say, Dr. McCauley, teach me about regression so I understand it. Teach me what my data is teaching me. Dr. Birdwell, tell me about the 10 best practices to get the best results in instruction. We have to, as educational instructional leaders, become learners again, because our field has changed. There was a day then when being great organizational managers was what we hired in the buildings, but not today. Today, we must be instructional leaders and good managers. And instructional leadership has not been the natural progression of administration in the state or in the nation, but it is now the time to step up for all children. I believe we do have teacher leaders who understand this. I've had enough conversations with Julie that I know she gets this. I know she gets how important teachers are. The greatest impact on learning is the teacher in the classroom. But even good teachers will get poor results when they have the wrong focus. And I think we just haven't had the right focus. We've had the right hearts. I believe that we're ready to roll up our sleeves. I believe that we're ready to make that commitment. We know that change is hard, but I believe that we all know that if we make these critical changes, that we'll make a difference in the lives of children. I think the challenges that we face have evolved over time. I think the data proves it. I don't think there was any intention. They just evolved, and sometimes when we don't focus on the thing that matters most, it just falls to the side. And now it's time for the Scottsdale District to say that in all that we do, let it be about students and learning first. And when we do that, I got to tell you, we will make a difference. I can tell you that the educators in this district are committed to making that difference. I believe I had enough conversations with teachers and school administrators to know that we can put children first. and education first. I'm going to tell you that as an organization, it's all of our concern, and I know I'm going to tell you right now, Governing Board, we will need your support to make these changes. And I guarantee you this, by supporting us, the academic leaders, we will support those teachers in the classroom to make sure that that work happens. But it is a system shift. It means that we all have to commit that student learning comes first. Yeah, we'll take care of the other things. They need to be taken care of. We need to be fiscally responsible. We need to make sure that other systems work. But let's make learning our first priority. And let's make sure that we come back here in September and I show you those SMART goals, school by school, level by level, that we really earnestly commit to breaking down any barrier that will prevent us from getting there. And that we commit to the children of Scottsdale, because I have to tell you, they can't wait. They can't wait another 3 years, another 5 years, and quite honestly, high school kids have about 4 years. And if you want to see college and career ready, we've got to get these academic scores up into the 70s. Quite honestly, Scottsdale should be in the 90s. But I'm going to be happy when we get to 70, and we'll do a happy dance together. We can get up into those 70s. There's no reason that any school in this district shouldn't bring you back scores in the 70s. That's what we need to be shooting for. Will it take time? Yeah, it may, but we should see movement immediately. When we do the right things, we should see immediate movement. We don't have time to sit around and say, well, hey, I'm going to set you a goal and I'm going to meet it in 5 years. Our children don't deserve a long goal like that. I understand long-term sets as well, but the reality is we need to do things today, tomorrow, and the next day, and the next day, and day by day to make a difference in the lives of children, and I think that this district can do it, and we're ready and we're primed to do it. Am I happy with our test scores? No. Don't quote me in the paper on that. What I see our test scores are is an opportunity. Again, I'm going to say this. Great teachers miss the mark when they don't understand what they're supposed to be aiming at. And I've seen it throughout districts over and over again. It's not that they don't have the qualifications or the ability or the skill set of instruction to make it happen. They just haven't had the right target that they're aiming for. Data provides that. Assessment, formative and both summative, provide the ability to see the target. Without the consistency of these pieces, we hit the wrong target. And then someone from the state comes in and gives us a summative assessment that says, hey, you ought to be here. And we don't hit it because we haven't been focused in that area. In addition to that, there will come a day, I hope, to stand before your governing board and say, not only is this what we're doing in our district, here's how we meet up with our peers, and P.S. on a national level, this is what we're doing. Because quite honestly, we shouldn't be satisfied with just Arizona. And I'm going to have my last soapbox moment. Arizona standards are important in curriculum, but they are only a beginning. Arizona standards are a basis and a foundation of learning. They're about right here. They're just the first step. But if we rely only on those standards, you will remain exactly where you're at. Because good school districts go beyond the standards and look at what our kids need to be successful in the next step. They look at both the national standards and they look at the next level of learning. And teachers know this innately. We have teachers who have done this. We have pockets of great instruction because they teach the state standard and they go beyond that. They understand that piece already. So yes, standards are important, but we have to say, these are the standards at this level, and we need to also do this. And at the next level, here are the standards, and we need to also do these pieces as well. We look at it both horizontally across the entire district, and we look at it vertically across the entire district. There is no reason that a student in algebra in Coronado can't score as high as a student in algebra in Desert Mountain. There's absolutely no reason in the world that that shouldn't happen. And I believe we can get there. So there's my soapbox for the moment. I thank you for the opportunity to be transparent and frank, and I want to thank my principals again for the courage to know that this is an opportunity, and there's no blame here, but we're going to move the needle forward. So thank you again, Governing Board. Any questions that you might have?
I don't think it is, no. But I will go with you first. Mrs. Perleberg.
not working, but oh, am I excited to speak. So yes, the light tonight's a little harsh. But my response to it is simply, let the light shine in.
Thank you.
With every blinder that we take off in this district, I know that we get stronger. With every fear that we push aside so that we can really see where we are, we get that much closer to where we want to be. And I know that as a board member. The good, the bad, and the ugly, I am not afraid of. I know our district is not afraid of, because the district's reality, some might have thought it was a big secret, but after talking to our parents and our stakeholders for 4 years and our teachers and our staff, it was the worst kept secret in town, quite honestly. So I can say that because I have loved this district for far too long and simply too much to just be able to look away. So tonight is very meaningful for me. And as we move forward together and really work to truly become the best choice for our SUSD families, I want to be very clear moving forward. Whatever roadblocks, excuses, or low expectations or fears that our district currently has getting in the way of our learners and their potential, their individual potential, for our community, we simply can't tear them down fast enough, in my opinion. And I believe with all my heart, and I know this district has the passion and the courage to do it. And every one of our staff, every one of our teachers has the passion and the courage to do it. So I feel tonight is incredibly important to say that we need to set Dr. Birdwell and her leadership team up for success so that they can do the same thing for our schools, our amazing educators, and most importantly for our students, because they absolutely deserve to be set up for success. And so for this board member, it's easy for me to say I am all in. Thank you, all of you, for this presentation tonight.
Ms. Hartman.
Thank you, and I pretty much just want to say whatever Board Member Perleberg just said was good, because I completely agree and embrace that. So thank you very much, and thank you for our existing leadership and our new leadership. Dr. McCauley, really thank you for digging in, and Dr. Birdwell, with your leadership and taking it in a very informative approach. Right? This is where we're at, this is where we want to be, this is how we're going to get there, and as a team, we're going to work together on that. And the team includes the board as well, so thank you. Can I ask a few questions?
Oh, please do.
I kind of feel bad asking any questions.
Oh, no, please do.
And this is just me learning along the process, and I'm sure we'll have times to, dive deeper. Let's see here. This one is for Dr. Birdwell. So in the very beginning, you had talked about our integrated systems. We can't connect data. Is that unique to SUSD, or is that across the state?
No, it's not unique. It's not uncommon. Member Hartman, governing board, it's not uncommon to come in as we become a data-driven society in the school systems. School systems were slow in adopting systems and housing systems that interrelated. And there were so many out there, and sometimes you went on the lowest bid, and you got a system, and you might have a system in special education that didn't talk with anybody but special ed teachers. Mm-hmm. Well, that's really unfortunate, because then what you have to do is migrate data over. So it's not uncommon to come in and find out that you've got some data housed here, some housed over here. It creates a cleanup time that in the main system, student information system, that we're doing the things like tagging open enrollment, that we're tagging in district, that we're tagging out of district, that we're tagging the ELL student, that we make sure that we're tagging the special education students, so that when you're desegregating information, you're able to run it different. It's not an uncommon problem. In my last 15 years, I don't think I've been in a district yet that didn't have to clean data. But once you get the clean data, it's so informative, and we'll get us there rapidly. We've got a team committed to making that happen. What's different in Scottsdale is you have a team of people ready to take on that challenge. In other districts, it was something that had to be sent out, and that might take 2, 3, 4, 6 months in order to do. Having in-house folks to get that work done, it's going to expedite the process.
Okay. Okay, so it's something we can tackle.
Absolutely. And we don't need to spend any money doing it.
Okay, and the reason why I was asking is, if it was statewide, is it something that should be on our ASBA agenda? I mean, I know it's notorious, our systems in our state have been horrific, particularly in education, so.
Get to the ASBA conversation at some board meeting, we'll talk about the changes in ADE and data and issues that we face there. I don't know about the appointment yet, but I have been asked to serve on some ad hoc ADE committees. One is the ADA-F ad hoc, and I've told them that I'll consider it. So part of that is to have the data talk at the state level, because the state data is a problem.
Right. Okay, thank you. So my next question is the downward trend that we did see starting in 2008, and I realize that's part of your future analysis, but is that, I'm assuming it partially is due to funding. I don't know. That's the first part of the question. And the second is, if you look across districts, do we see that downward slope beginning in 2008, or are we unique?
Well, some did and some didn't. Where in my previous life, we did not have that. We didn't have the dip. That was the year I came in. You were there a year before.
Depends on the system that you had. If we looked at the Vail School District, they didn't have the dip. The Higley School District didn't have the dip. The Dysart District didn't have the dip. Chandler, I don't think, had the dip. So it depended on what you were focused on. There were very difficult decisions to be made between 2008 and 2014. They had to do with financial decisions about what I would cut from my programs, what I would not cut. It had to do with raising class sizes, not raising class sizes. It had to do with instructional time, how instructional time was spent, whether you had the personnel to do some of the work that needed to be done. We began to see falling off of district level support and direction, and then without the district level support and direction, people began to not do some of the practice that needed to be done. It depended on, were you an early adopter of Common Core or a late adopter of Common Core. So there's all of these components occurring between 2008 and 2014. We're in the process of laying this data out and looking at variables that could have had a potential impact on Scottsdale, from adoption of certain curriculum, for instance, Springboard. Did at the time that Springboard came in, did it have any impact whatsoever? We're looking at Success Math and other programs, and did it have an impact? And whether or not those programs had an impact. If they didn't have an impact, why didn't they? And then we'll boil that down into the grade level that they were supposed to impact, and look at the individual grade level pieces. So, yeah, you know, that's a real hard thing to look at. There's absolutely probably a cause effect here, but not as significant as it should have been. It depends on what a district focus, and not being here. Dr. Benson has become my best friend in giving me a little history lesson occasionally. So we're working through that. If we're finding anomalies, we certainly will share it with the board. But again, we look back to go forward. What we don't want to do is repeat. So we want to make sure that you know, there are other issues. For instance, in some districts, they added minutes into the school day. Other districts, I mean, everybody did something different during that time frame to address those cuts. Yeah. We recently had a conversation with the Chandler School District, which one should put yourself up next to Chandler. Very similarities demographically, and looked at what was the commitment from Chandler academically, what was the teacher's work day like, what were the academic focuses. So we'll be looking at some of that. What I really look forward to is during our study sessions over the next 2 months, having these conversations with you.
Yeah, and just to capture the spirit of the question, I am just looking forward, and the only reason I would look backwards is to understand what are the lessons learned that we can take from and then apply forward. So,
yeah, perfect.
And my next question is related to the fact that it's longitudinal. Is it, so there's Ames and there's AZ Merit. So is that an apples to apples comparison, or is that just as good as it gets?
Normalizing the scores.
That does, okay.
And so that's what it does, because now we're relative to the state's mean, rather than a scale score that looks very arbitrary at a glance until you know the systematic standard setting process behind it.
So that in means as well, when you looked at the merit, you only have 2 points in time. And so what the states, many school districts have done is we've looked at other states that had the same AZ merit testing protocol, and over the 5-year period, what kinds of expectations could we have? It's an unusual phenomenon to see spikes from 2015 to 2016, because that's not what the research anywhere else in any other state is necessarily showing, at least that I have found at this point. We were expecting 1 to 2 point gains from year 1 to year 2. However, it's not uncommon when you took the test the first year, if you didn't test prep and set kids up for a different way of testing, or the protocol, because there was a different style of testing that occurred, and sometimes the question that were 2 answers were correct, and you were supposed to mark 2 answers. Well, kids aren't used to that. Kids are used to bubbling 1 bubble. Now you tell them they get to bubble 2. So there are testing strategies that you actually have to teach children. Paper and pen, the state said, really didn't make a difference whether it was paper and pen versus computer, depending on how computer fluent your community was. So there are different variables. Those little spikes, I wouldn't put a whole lot into it. To me, that is probably testing protocol and whether we prepped the kids the first year in 2015 versus 2016. So I wouldn't get really excited about the spikes. What we want to do, though, is we hope that the second year was more realistic than the first year, and that we can maintain that going forward as we move forward. And that's what we'll be talking with the individual principals about.
Okay, thank you. And I also had a question around, are there particular, you talked a little bit about the strategies around the PLCs and in how we're going to support teachers to achieve this. Is there anything that we can do as a board or be mindful of as we support whatever that effort needs to look like?
Sure. Well, first of all, it's us keeping you informed that we're retraining everybody in PLCs. PLCs has been around for 20 plus years, but a true professional learning community is focused around student learning. We shouldn't get together to see what happened on The Bachelorette, but sometimes we do. And the reality is we have to say that, hey, we believe that the time that you're under contract is contract time, and that time should be focused around children and learning, and we're going to hold you accountable to that. Well, that means that when we are meeting in PLCs, that although you said you were receiving training in formative assessment, there was no documentation that formative assessment really took place. And then when we visited your classrooms, we had no evidence of that. So what we need to do is make sure that accountability is also part of our language, that we believe in PLCs and providing time for teacher training. We believe that before school, during break, after school, that maybe the day coming back before holidays, a good professional development day, kids stay home, teachers come and learn. As we move forward and bring forth those plans, we'll be asking the board to support it. But we need to assure that there's accountability, that true learning is taking place, and that what is happening in the building for the teacher is appropriate. Teachers need time to talk to each other about student learning, but we need to assure that that's what's happening.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. And once again, thank you for putting a light on this conversation and on the data, and that it's data-driven and positive and appreciative in how we move forward with it. So thank you, and to the principals as well.
Mr. Jackson?
Dr. Birdwell, I guess I want to mirror what my colleagues have set up here. This is incredibly, in my time on the school board, I've never seen data this transparent. And, it's, I think this board has been clamoring for that and absolutely supports. We want the data, good, bad, or ugly, and we want to move forward. And Dr. McCauley, this is fantastic data. It's helping us, all of us, know where we are. And obviously, as Dr. Birdwell said, we have to start there with clear, unvarnished data to move forward. And I do believe you, Dr. Birdwell, we do have outstanding principals that will carry the day. And so anyway, I think we're all pretty excited up here to see, again, my time on the board, I've never seen this type of transparent data laid out in this fashion. And we're all thrilled to be here. I think we've been asking or looking for this for a long time. And Dr. Birdwell, I just want to congratulate you personally, again, for getting us to this point as quickly as you have. I mean, you haven't been here all that long. And for you to bring in Dr. McCauley, who's done incredible work here, and provide this type of transparent data for our community is outstanding. And I think we're all excited to support your efforts, all of our efforts, but moving forward from this point forward. And I agree with you. I think this has been Board Member Kirby's mantra all along. We need to look beyond the state of Arizona. And as she said that, and I think, I don't mean to put words in your mouth, but I think that's been, you're absolutely right. We're Scottsdale Unified School District is, we need to aim very high. And I think we're starting at a good place. So anyway, thank you very much. It's a great presentation.
You're welcome. Ms. Kirby.
Thank you, Dr. Birdwell, Dr. McCauley, for the presentations tonight, with the slight exception of the horrific flashbacks you gave me to my Stat 101 class in college. You really did. Some of those terms, I was like, oh, I thought I'd never have to hear that again. You know, again, everything that these folks have said, I think you're getting positive feedback tonight. You asked for board support. I think you're hearing that you're going to get board support. But the one thing that I wanted to address was I'm hearing a strong sense of urgency from you that is appreciated. And I'm confident that the community will appreciate that sense of urgency as well. So you asked for board support. My question to you is, what does that look like, and when does that need to happen in light of that sense of urgency? You talked about additional data analysis that you're going to do. When might we expect to see that, and then will there be an ask based upon your conclusions of that data analysis of this board in the forms of possible funding, policy changes? What might that look like, and when might we see it?
Board Member Kirby, Governing Board, tonight is the start of that understanding that you understand where I'm coming from, and I appreciate that, and I feel that sense of support. To get deeper into that is yes, yes, and yes. In other words, yes, I want to get deeper into the data. I want to bring it back to you so I can be very specific about what those shifts are. And then as we approach that, I am predicting that there will be a variety of pieces that I ask you for. When I talk about barriers, it's looking at how we do the business of education. And so some of it might be looking at, are we providing appropriate time for teachers to meet and discuss the data that they have in order to make the critical changes of instruction? So we might be having those conversations. And please understand that when I say we'll be having it, we'll be having it, but I'll also be having it with Julie and her team and her executive board, because I'm not so foolish to not understand the importance of that teacher relationship, and that they are our partner in addressing this. So as I meet with them, as we get the data, we come back to the board and say, hey, here's some policy issues that might be holding us back a little bit, or this might be an issue of within potentially how we work our relationships with our teachers that we need support on. The teachers and the administration have discussed what we could do to create better teacher time for this type of discussion to occur in the contract day. So it might be tied to a contract day. I predict that it is not something where I'm going to come to you and say, oh, I need you to buy me this equipment or this tool or this. That's not what I'm talking about. It's going to be, we have those things. Scottsdale is okay when it comes to instructional tools at the moment. But it's focusing on that first instructional piece inside of a classroom. It might be reorganizing the dollars that we have to push them back into the classroom. It might be saying, as we go into next year's staff and governing board, as we've worked through this data, there's a better use for this dollar to lower class sizes in critical areas and needs. It might be looking at where we have hard to fill, hard to keep and retain teachers, we might need to look differently at how we pay those teachers. And for that pay, we might be requesting them to work a little longer, to work with kids a little longer in the day. So we'll be bringing back, are we having a high teacher turnover in an area where the kids are performing the lowest? That's not uncommon. But how do you address that to encourage teachers to stay? There needs to be an incentive to that. But in return to that incentive, are the teachers going to commit to spending more time with kids, tutoring after school, and be there an extra hour? Those are conversations to have with teachers, and then conversations for us to have with the board to say, support us in making these shifts and changes so that not all decisions fit into the same box. And sometimes policies, and even extended policies such as TEAs, that are meant to help all hinder some. And we want to have those kinds of conversations with you as we go forward. To your issue of urgency, I don't think that there's anything more urgent than fixing the academics in this district. I truly don't. This is a safe district. We do a great job in that regard. But in the aspect of meeting the needs of children, we need to do better. And so there's an urgency, but I believe we're committed to do it.
So just as a follow-up, so I get that, I get the commitment, I get the sense of urgency, but are we talking like next work study, or are we talking next board meeting, or are we talking January?
Yes, next board meeting, we're going to bring you more data. We're going to peel this back a little bit. We're going to bring some specifics that are practice changes that are probably necessary, if without getting into the detail of it right now. But yes, next work study, and actually I'll even be asking the board to change the work study time date, because I'm supposed to appear before the city council, which I don't want to miss, and we have our work study on their night, but it's so important that I have the conversation with you in the work study that I will be asking you for a different date for that work study, and I apologize for that shift, but I think it's critical that I meet with the city council in September. They'd like to know the facts about the bond and the override. So, yes, next time we get together, I want to have a conversation. I want to have a deeper conversation. I want to share some of the goals and some of the things that I believe, that our team believes, will make a significant shift. So immediately start that. Every time we get together, we're going to have at least one topic about academics. Every time we meet, and our fall will be filled with academics.
Thank you so much for that. One of the things that I noticed, and I have to be very careful not to read too much into this, but I want to make sure that what I saw and what my interpretation is actually, I was amazed that our foreign language immersion school had the high ELA curve. There was just one thing that I took out of there that I want to make sure that I was interpreting it correctly.
Indeed, President Sneed, I'm glad that you said that, because I do think that there is a correlation between what's happening in Pueblo in the ELA to the fact that it is a dual language. In order to understand and learn a language, you have to understand your own language. So the more progression the children make in that second language, they will make within their own language, and we're seeing that come to fruition. I look forward to studying how our Mandarin kids do.
I mean, we've heard it anecdotally, but it's nice to see that. One of the things that we'll also have to be prepared for here, if we're going to, as governing board members, if we're going to look at programmatic, as we dive down into programs, is to make sure that we support the decisions that are made about these programs. And we can anticipate some pushback if favorite programs that have not been shown to be effective when it comes to learning, as effective as the anecdotes might have told us. So we're going to have to show bravery in that area by supporting the decisions that are made there, in light of it maybe not being very popular. I'm very happy that rather than just giving us the data and letting everybody interpret it as they think that they should, that we're taking the time to analyze it and to really peel it back and drill down. This isn't something that, the understanding part should not be rushed. So as far as on our part, understanding what it means and what might be effective to address any of the issues that we need to look at. So I'm very excited. This is going to be an exciting year. Thank you.
Thank you, President Sneem.
The next item on our agenda is item 8B, Scottsdale Unified School District Enrollment Update.
Madam President, Governing Board members, Dr. Birdwell and Sandra, I have the opportunity to share some enrollment data tonight. Sadly, I'm the second agenda item on the docket tonight, so I'll apologize to everybody up front, but I don't think I'll be as exciting as the first presentation. I'm going to try to make a bunch of numbers fun and exciting. We'll see how I do. Let's get started. Student enrollment update. So the million-dollar question is, hey, Dr. McNeil, hey, Dave, how do the numbers look? How are we looking? We know we had some challenges come spring when we heard the news of a charter school moving into our neighborhood, and how are we going to respond, and what was it going to look like? And tonight I can sit here and be very proud of all the behind-the-scenes work that we've done across the board to show our community that the Scottsdale School District is a choice district. So to set the stage for teachers in the room and principals in the room, they all know the first couple days of school are very interesting because, believe it or not, all of our families don't show up the first day of school. In the elementary department, we get phone calls saying, hey, we saw the buses driving by. Did the school year start? Yes, that is true. And we say, yes, it started 2 days ago, and you can get there as soon as you can. Believe it or not, we do have families that are abroad still vacationing, and we do have families that are out of town visiting family back east, because again, back east, the school year doesn't start until September, right, Sandra? So we have challenges, and in the classroom, we know the first couple of days, teachers are scrambling to find out who exactly is in my classroom. Principals are running around trying to figure out, oh my gosh, I need to count all my kids to make sure that I have enough staff to make sure that I can teach all these kids. So lots of conversations about what it looks like. We have a software called Synergy that many districts across the state use to track our enrollment. The interesting thing when looking at student enrollment and taking attendance is that the software itself, our teachers mark kids absent, not present. What does that mean? That alone adds challenges to really understanding how many kids we have in the district. Because believe it or not, we have kids that show up the first day and are out the second day. We have families and children that don't show up till the third day. So what exactly is our number, and how does it look, and why do we wait to figure out what's going on? Well, there's lots of challenges with that. So it is very important that we identify that there is a difference between enrollment and attendance. So I will go through as fast as I can all of the slides to show basically where we're at versus last year, and to answer the million-dollar question of how are we doing. Okay, let's start here. Let me give you some heads up about what we got here. The slide here shows all the schools in the district. We have 8/10/2015, which was last year's first day. We have 8/8, which is 2016, which is this year's first day. The blue column is a gains lost based on first day last year to first day this year. I thought just for the fun of it and giggles that I would put the 100-day number of last year, which was January 26th, to give us kind of an idea of how perhaps enrollment looks from the first day of last year to the 100th day, and how the first day of this year looks versus the 100th day. And the far right column will basically show you how different it is from the 100th day last year to the first day this year. Usually if we see larger numbers in the last column versus the middle column, we know that students are coming throughout the year. So if we add up all the schools and all the enrollments for pre-K-12, we can see our grand total for last school year's first day was 24,178. This year's first school day, including preschools, was 24,079, a negative 99. So on first blush, you can say, okay, first year to first year, all of our pre-K programs, all of our schools were down 99 kids. If you look at the growth from last year, or if you look at last year's 100th day enrollment, which is tied to money, and this presentation has nothing to do with money, Danny, right? We will see that our first day was only down 83 days. So as a district, we saw that we increased to the 100th day, but just a small amount. So let's go to the next slide. Let's take pre-K out of it because not all of our schools have pre-K. If we look at the enrollment K-12, we can see our specific schools. And again, if we add up the first day to first day, we are down 107 K-12 students from first day to first day. If we look at the 100th day, we see that we're down only 66 kids based on last year's 100th day. Some things that stand out here, Cherokee is up, I'm sorry, okay, I'm sorry, I'm on the wrong slide here. Cherokee we see is up 57. We have some other numbers here that show up. Ingleside is very interesting. And of course, then we look at our Desert Mountain community where our charter school friends set up a charter school, and we look at those schools and see how they were impacted. The million-dollar question, was our Desert Mountain community impacted? I would say yes, we were impacted. To be very transparent and be very honest, we will see when we break it down by grade levels which schools within that community were impacted. However, the good news is that many of our other communities, such as Arcadia and Chaparral, showed gains overall. So it's very interesting. So right now, if we just look at first day versus first day, we will see that we are down 107 kids. And then a lot of people ask, hey, Dave, you know, today is the 12th day of school. Why are we looking at the first day? Why don't we look at the 11th day and see, did people finally show up? That'll be our last slide, so that'll be our anticipation as we move forward. I'll set you all up. All right, let's look at our kinder numbers for school. So again, we have our schools here at kinder. As you can see, the total across the board. So last year's total, 1438. This year's kinder total first day is a -3. Pretty flat. Some things that we need to celebrate here is Cherokee plus 18. Desert Canyon Elementary School, that's in that Desert Mountain High School community, looking strong at plus 17, and Sequoia at plus 11. Some interesting ones that we need to look at is Anasazi at a -16, Cochise at a -21, Laguna at a -12, and Tavon at -19. Interesting that we do have gains and we have losses within that complex. You know, it is what it is. You look at the numbers. You know, you can make your own decisions based on that. Let's look at first grade really quick. Interesting, some standouts. Again, we are down 29 first graders across the district from 1522 to 1493. Some standouts here, Kiva at plus 12, Sequoia up again in K1 with an 11, and Tavon is up 16. Interesting enough, if you looked at Tavon's kinder, down 19, but Tavon's first grade up 16. If you look at Anasazi, -7, Desert Canyon -17, Laguna -20, and Redfield -14. So we can look at the first grade numbers and say, okay, what's going on in that complex? Our next slide is the second grade. We can see that we're down 22 kids from first day to first day. Some things that stand out to me again is Cherokee looking strong at plus 36. Desert Canyon Elementary, which was up in kinder, down in first, is now up at 13. Laguna up 14, which was down in the previous slides. Some of the losses that stand out here, Hohokam at -11, Copper Ridge at -12, Sequoia at -19. But interesting enough, Sequoia was up in kinder and first, but why second? Slide for the third grade here, we can see that we're down 90. That one kind of stood out. This is our largest loss for a grade level. There will be lots of questions of what's, you know, what is the impact? What are we seeing? Anasazi down 39 at this grade level. Copper Ridge -22, Tonawea -12. We can see that Kiva is up 12. again, and Pueblo up 11. Desert Canyon holding strong at +8. The interesting thing here is the 8 schools of the 19 are ±3. So although we see a large number of decrease within our 3rd grade, most of the schools are ±3. We just see those big 2 numbers. If you look at Anasazi and the -22, Copper Ridge, that makes up a bulk of the 90. So adding to some more of the questions of what's going on. Next, 4th grade. We see a -46 total, first day to first day. Cherokee again, up 25. Navajo up 27. Hohokam up 11. Desert Canyon up 1, holding strong. Laguna down 19. Copper Ridge down 18. Redfield down 17. Anasazi, surprisingly enough, only down 5. Okay, as we get to the last grade within the elementaries, because remember our elementary schools are K-5s, you beg the question of, okay, in that Desert Canyon or the Desert Mountain complex, how will the elementary numbers hold, knowing that it's the last grade level at the elementary? Let's see how they did here. Hohokam is a +11, Hopi up 26, Pueblo up 18, Tavan up 13, Tawan up 14. We have a -73 overall, Cherokee -10, which is interesting because in K3 he was up 55, but for some reason in 5th grade down a couple students. Cochise at -11, Desert Canyon -30, which is interesting, but up 21 kids overall from the K3. Navajo -16, but was up 27th in 4th grade. So then we start asking the questions about size of cohorts of kids. Grade levels, as we know at Desert Mountain High School, when we get to that slide, this year's senior class is much smaller than last year's senior class. So we know groups of kids are not all created equal, but it does lead to some questions that we can ask. Let's move to our middle schools here. This is 6th grade slide, middle schools and K-8s. As you can see, we're up 70 students overall, which is encouraging because as long as I've been here, the old message is, oh my gosh, our families leave when they go to middle school for all the reasons of hormones and rock and roll and those type of things. So it's interesting to see that this is encouraging for our middle schools. We're up 70. Some things that stand out, Cocopah, bam, 54. Ingleside +20, Mojave +35. The Mojave might be interesting as we had the conversations about Pima. But we didn't see the decreases so much as at the Tonalea to make up the difference of our Pima kids going to Mojave versus the Tonalea K-8. Interesting enough, Cheyenne down 12, Desert Canyon Middle School at -32. It's interesting if you add the Desert Canyon Middle School 5th and 6th grade down 62 kids. Lots of conversations that needs to happen at the Desert Canyon Middle School with respect to that. I'm sorry, that would be the elementary to the middle school. 7th grade, we have a loss of 25 students overall, up 31 students at Desert Canyon Middle School, which is very interesting because they were down 32 in the 6th grade. And Ingleside coming in strong again at +13. Our takeaways or our negatives would be Tonalea K-8 at -10, -22 for Cocopah after being up huge for the previous grade, and -12 Mojave, -28 for Mountainside. Interesting between Mojave and Mountainside being down in 7th grade, both being up huge in 6th grade. Again, is that about cohorts of students or is that about parental choice? Let's move to the next slide. I'm trying to be as efficient as possible here. 8th grade, up 32 kids, which is encouraging because, again, it is our middle school and fighting that misnomer. Up 32 kids. Standouts, Cocopah again coming in strong at 20. Ingleside up huge at 67. And our interesting losses would be Cheyenne at -20, Tonalea at -34, and Desert Canyon at -30. I think the middle schools look encouraging. In a nutshell, with the high schools, held strong. As we can see in 9th grade at our 5 high schools, we're up 24 kids. The high schools get pretty easy here, pretty consistent across all grade levels here, plus or minus nothing more than 12. If we move to our 10th grade, we're down 1 kid, again, pretty significant growth at Chaparral, Arcadia and Saguaro at -27 and 12. And our 11th grade. Again, up 33, which is encouraging. Coronado up 40. Everybody else is pretty consistent and at the rates. And of course, our senior year, and this is the interesting one that jumped out with Desert Mountain High School at minus 72. Immediately we looked at it, but after talking with the parents, we know that that cohort of kids is much smaller. But as you can see, we're at plus 29. Pre-K is an interesting slide to look at, in that we have 3 different programs, from title to special ed pre-K and a fee-based program. But I can honestly say that from last year's first day to this year's first day, we have an increase of 8 kids, which is encouraging because we know that is our future. The interesting thing that we note as well is that the 100th day last year, look at that 829. I will suspect that will be higher come our 100th day, because as they get older, kids get older during the year, they're coming to preschool. I know the families want to get them in there and are excited about getting them learning. So I will predict when we present this back on the 100th day or the 101st day or whatever it is, we will see that preschool number moving up quite considerably. I could go through some of the gains. But I think it's interesting that we're up, and it's looking good. The interesting thing here that we did not add was our newly full-day pre-K program, the Oak Learning Academy, and that is not on this slide. And the reason for it not being on this slide is we're still waiting for our CTDS number, which makes us legal with the state. Although we have students enrolled there and it's looking encouraging, it is not added to the slide. To the presentation. So in a nutshell, do we get to the final answer? Okay, for giggles and fun, we decided, let's poll yesterday to see where we are versus the first day. And, the drum roll goes, okay, well, day 11, 23,436 versus the first day number of 23,352. 84 students showed up since then, which makes us come to the conclusion that we are only down 23 kids from last year's first day to this year's 11th day, which is a huge celebration to the support from the governing board to make sure that we continue to do great tours at every site, and the great job of our principals here. The communications department, to get the information out to everybody. I think the influx of our strong numbers at Desert Canyon Elementary School, I saw first blush from Principal Kinghorn about the survey results of Mandarin, and people are excited, and they're coming. Spanish at the elementary schools, again. You look at Anasazi, which has the Spanish elective, and we did see some losses there. But, I'm going to be an optimist and say I wonder what the numbers would have looked like if we had not put that in place to kind of wrangle with the curiosity of that charter school opening up down the street. Interesting enough, sitting in that Anasazi office and watching families that are withdrawing to buy the new Coach bag or the brand new pair of shoes or whatever you want to call it, very open about saying, hey, we love it here. And we're just kind of want to see what it's like, and can we come back if we don't like it? So I think the principals in the Desert Mountain Complex can contest to that, and they're probably nodding their heads behind me because they know their families and they know they're good people, and we know that our schools do amazing work up there. So I am optimistic, and I'm thankful to all of you for allowing Dr. Birdwell and her leadership team to do some of the crazy things to combat some of the numbers of the past. If we think back about longitudinally over the last couple of years, we were showing losses in the 200s every single year. So at day 11, which was yesterday, I didn't poll today's, only being down 23 kids versus the first day is pretty significant. And, I'm excited. I think with the vision and the commitment of our governing board and our new superintendent, well, not so new, and the leadership team and the principals behind it, I think we're going to get where we need to get. So with that, I'll take any questions, but again, it's just a lot of numbers, and I apologize to the crowd.
Mrs. Kirby.
Thank you, Dr. McNeil. So at the risk of being quoted improperly in the paper of being excited about only being down 100. I think when you stop and realize what it could have been,
Correct.
it is something it's a huge sigh of relief. Do we have 10th day number from last year? Because theoretically, kids would have showed up last year too, right? So in order to keep with those apples to apples comparison, I like how you did day 1 to day 1. That makes a lot of sense. Do we have
Sure
day
we do.
10 last year?
Sure we do. I would feel more comfortable doing the 11th day to the 11th day and sharing that with Dr. Birdwell. We can have that pulled tomorrow and sent to you all, or we can bring it to the work study
Okay,
session next
and
time to
then-
kind of have those conversations.
Okay, and then in the spirit of our last conversation, I'd like for us to think about, because you made the comment several times or in the opening statements that our families show up slow to the school year. And so what can we do as a district to change that culture? And I don't mean asking our teachers to go door to door to tell families to come to school. It's not what I'm.
Wake up.
But how? Because that's probably lost instructional time too. I was listening to you and I was picturing teachers who's in my class. They're not teaching the kids that first day. They're doing housekeeping kinds of activities. So as a district for next year, I'd like for us to think about what can we do to communicate in the spring that first day is important for learning.
You're exactly right.
By a lot of this noise.
You're exactly right. Board Member Kirby, excellent point, and I know that Ms. Harrington has a big smile on her face because I know she has lots of ideas. You know, also looking at last year's calendar, I know that we started on a Wednesday, and this year we started on a Monday, because the last 2 years we started on a Wednesday, so did we pull a fast one on everybody? I will attest to the teachers. I know that they're frustrated when they don't have their class at the elementary level, and at the high school, I can't even imagine the schedule changes that have to occur to level classes with staffing. So I think everybody in the room would say, yes, we love the idea of making sure that we get everybody here as early as possible, and what are some creative ways that we can do that. So I love it, and I think the conversations will start tomorrow.
Yeah, President Sneed, Governing Board, let me also say that one of the elements that will make a difference in this is our conversation with the community about the rigor on day 1. And it's really critical when we start looking at what other districts do, what our competition does the first week of school, and letting kids and families know, hey, here was that summer suggested reading list. Oh, P.S., the first assignment's going to be due the first week of school. And we look at that rigor, and we look what we do during that first week, and make sure that day 1, I'm walking home with homework that I'm going to talk secondary for a moment. I have never been in a secondary school or been a secondary principal where day 1 you didn't have homework, where you know that there was a reading list that you needed to be taken care of over the summer, where you started in those AP classes and those IB classes and those honors classes, preparing in the summer for what you would face the first day. So we have to go back to communicating that rigor. I've talked with Dr. Benson about meeting with the English teachers and discussing that and how we will communicate that out to our families. But rigor starts day 1, and we got to send that message. So we've got some work to do there, but I'm really excited about that work, and I know our teachers are going to jump for joy when we get behind them on that.
You bet. Having, you got to teach that first day in kindergarten or you'll die. So, I mean, my kindergarten teachers know that, so.
Anyone else? Mr. Jackson?
Dr. McNeil, I just want to thank you for the presentation. It was, once again, very good data, and I agree with Board Member Kirby. This could have been much worse considering the competition we're facing, and I think it's a real testament to a lot of things. I think some of the decisions we've made with foreign language across the district, I do believe is part of the reason we're seeing this, and I think just a shout out to Christine Harrington. I just think we're just doing a much better job of call it marketing, telling our story. We have a good story here in Scottsdale schools, and we're doing a heck of a lot better job of getting that information out, and so thank you for always outstanding work, Christine, truly. Anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you, Board Member Jackson. Yeah, just an FYI, that school that it did open up down the street from Anasazi, 600 seats, K-6. or K-5. That's what they were slotted for. So, with the work of Christine Harrington and the building principals behind me that, have to run a building, be the instructional leader, and they still got to make time in to take parents on a tour and tell them the great things of their schools. The culture of being a building principal has changed since I was a principal. I don't remember doing tours, but I guess that is part of the game now, and our principals are excited, and I think they do an amazing job.
Mrs. Hartman.
All right. Thank you, Dr. McNeil, and I am so excited to be a board member this year because data and transparency, it is great. So it's terrific starting out on this note. And I guess I just wanted to kind of marry our first discussion item with this discussion item because I think it's interesting. Even though we're shining a flashlight, right, on where we're at in terms of results, and we're looking forward, it shows our community is still behind us, and they believe in the product we sell today, and they believe in the potential of it tomorrow, which I think is reflective of the change in leadership. So I think as we think through marketing, we need to really just make sure, even though we want to base our messages in reality, we're looking for the next level of excellence because we're building off a great foundation. It's only going to get better from here. So I just think that's something for us to all think about and promote, whether it's in the classroom, outside the classroom, in the community. So, but thank you for the good work.
I agree, thanks.
Mrs. Perleberg.
Button needs fixed.
Trying to get everybody out of here.
Okay, so yeah, I'm just gonna throw in kind of an agreement, obviously, with my fellow board members. I think these numbers do reflect an optimism that our district is feeling, a momentum that began last year, and a lot of conversations that were happening at the end of this last year that led to us really able to look forward to this coming year and get our families excited about coming to SUSD. We know that excitement and that love is there, and I think we did a great job. All our staff did a great job of tapping into it for us, and luckily these numbers reflect. The one question that I'll leave with tonight does kind of go back to that data scrub question that we talked about in academic numbers. I believe we kind of have the same type of need for an data scrub on our enrollment numbers. So now we can truly begin to understand who our kids are and where are they and where they're going and why they're choosing that. It's a culture of choice, we know that. So to truly know open enrollment, in boundary, in district, out of district, all of that very clearly, I think is just going to be so helpful in our future conversations as we talk about programs and changes moving forward. So I'll just end with that. Thank you.
Thank you.
And if I might just jump in on that, just to say, I want you to know that the data that you have in front of you did not come through an easy funnel.
Yes. Thank you.
We worked hard to scrub that data to make sure that what you were seeing was accurate, and I can't tell you how many reports that we sent back and sent back and sent back and made sure that concurrent enrollment wasn't double counting kids, making sure that this was a very accurate count. It is not an ADM count. It is an accurate body, or as we say in the school system, butts in the seats. Count.
Warm body.
But the reality is it was hard work, and I want to thank all the people that worked on that. And Dr. McNeil got to be our voice, but I'm telling you, we had some heated conversations in cabinet about, is that a real body? And those poor principals would get the text, and we'd say, go count your second grade. So bless their heart, they worked really hard to clean that data those first 10 days to really know where our kiddos were, calling families to verify, are you coming? We noticed Johnny's not here yet. So thank you so much, principals, for that hard work, and Kyle and Brian and Dr. McNeil for all of the hard work.
Yeah, Brian Parks and Ronnie and Simar did an amazing job. So I just want to say thank you to them for helping out, getting the numbers that we got.
I just wanted to thank.
Sorry.
Yeah, I wanted to thank all of the principals. I know that we've shifted in culture to the principal really being the outreach person and really spending a lot of time one-on-one contact, building relationship with parents, and the teachers too. I mean, that they're the front line. They're the ones that are going to, I mean, the students might come to us, but they're the reason that they stay. And I want to thank all of them for their dedication. I also just want to make sure what part of the thing that we were planning on having fewer students. I mean, we were kind of like balancing that worst case scenario with the hopeful thing. So I just want to make sure that we don't scare any of them away by having too many kids in one class and not getting staffing back up to speed, because we could lose them that way. So, and I know it's a delicate dance, and having 4 teachers in my family, I know a lot of them that were freaking out because they have to make labels for all the new kids, and just every little thing is really hard in the very beginning, and it's very unsettling. But if we're focusing on kids, we need to make that a priority, that we don't have too many kids in a classroom just because we're looking at an average.
Yep.
Yeah, President Sneed, I can't thank you enough for that comment, and I want you to know that we added teachers. I added a 2nd grade teacher in Anasazi the day before school started, and bless those parents, they just rolled with us on it. But the reality is we watch very closely and do not want high class sizes. And I know there's research on both sides of that fence, but the reality is our class sizes look good right now. We'll continue to monitor. We're expecting a 1% growth over the next 100 days. So our prediction is, and that's how we typically do, so we should continue to see that, and we'll monitor those classes. But you're absolutely right. We need to deliver that which we said we would.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Seeing nothing else, the next item on the agenda is item 9A. It's an action item, Arizona School Board Association proposed bylaw changes. And I'm slated to present this, but it's pretty much self-explanatory. We've all been through this. Do we have any, I think we have to vote on the bylaw amendments first. And do you need me to read them or just, okay. So is there any discussion for ideas for the possible bylaw amendments to be submitted to ASBA as part of the annual membership governance process on, we have to submit it by September 15th, 2016. Is there any discussion? Okay. So with that, I would like to make a motion that we approve the amendments that were submitted to us in writing for ASBA as part of their annual membership governance process. Do you have a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. That motion passes 5-0. And the next item is item 9B, Arizona School Board Association proposed 2016 political agenda recommended by the Legislative Committee. Again, this is something that was presented to us in writing, so I assume that all members have had a chance to look it over. Any discussions, anything that we need to, any direction that we need to give our delegate, Ms. Perleberg?
Oh,
Because this will become, the vote on this will be coming up at the delegate assembly, and this will be yours, and I think Mrs. Hartman is our alternate, so. Yes, Ms. Hartman.
So I did read through it, and we looked at it, I think, end of last year as well. Is there an opportunity, I mean, are they actually asking for additional feedback at this point, or is it? Because I have a question, actually.
On one of the things that they've submitted or processed?
Well, this is the question, and it really is more of a question, but I thought it was interesting. So ASBA sent this document out, which is the Arizona Minority Education Policy Analysis Center, which I thought was really interesting. And one item that I noted in here, and maybe Dr. Birdwell or Dr. Benson can probably speak to this, and I didn't notice it in the agenda, but this report, assuming it's, something that we all rely on, it talked about English language learners and how we're losing. We're actually decreasing in results over the years as English language learners in Arizona have decreased dramatically over the last 10 years due to changes in the AZELA proficiency, which tests allow ELL students to be classified as proficient even when the students are not. And if that's a true statement, I'm thinking that should really be the legislative agenda, which I did not see it there.
Okay.
So I don't know.
I don't know if you can add at this time, but we can certainly bring it to the attention of ASBA, and therefore, if it can't come into this, they might still consider it as an item that they need to be watching and bringing to others' attention.
Right. And I know one of the things that's being discussed as well is the 4-hour block that's mandated. Is it affecting, and maybe that's one of the things that we can take a look at in our data as we're drilling down. The 4-hour block that's mandated for the English language learners is actually taking them away from their other studies, and is it affecting their, is it affecting their math scores and their science scores and that sort of thing too?
That really was my interest more than anything else. I don't know how much it affects us. I'd be interested in how it does affect us. But the big takeaway in this report is the ground we're losing in English language as well as mathematics, and then tying it back to English language learners. I don't see how we can move the needle as, if we're not addressing literacy by 3rd grade, so.
No, I agree with you, and I think that's an area that we want to study to see how it's affecting Scottsdale's kids. I can tell you, and looking at it in other districts, particularly ELL at the high school level, the 4 hours was absolutely burying them academically and causing higher dropout rates. So we want to look at how it's affecting our Scottsdale students.
Thank you. Do we have a motion then? Ms. Kirby.
So I move to accept the ASBA proposed 2016 political agenda recommended by the Legislative Committee as presented.
I'll second.
I think it's a 17.
It says 16 on our agenda.
At the top it does, and then on the bottom it says 17.
I'm reading this agenda right here.
Okay. Yeah, it should have been 17.
Okay.
In the recommendation, it says 17. There's a typo.
Okay. So I move to accept the ASBA proposed 2017 political agenda recommended by the Legislative Committee as presented.
I'll second that.
Thank you. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Aye. That motion passes 5-0. Future items, board members may propose topics for future consideration.
Gee, what are we going to talk about?
Okay. Dates of upcoming meetings. We had the board meeting, the study session scheduled for September 8th at 3 o'clock. Is it my understanding that that may change?
Yes, it may change, and I do apologize, but I do not want to miss that opportunity with the city council.
Okay. And then we will have a regular governing board meeting on Tuesday, September 13th, 2016 at 5 o'clock in this venue. Governing board reports. Mr. Jackson.
I just wanted to follow up on Dr. Birdwell's comments during superintendent comments that there's the Business United for Scottsdale Schools Business Education Breakfast on August 30th, next Tuesday at 7:30 at Sky Song. And this is a very if you can make it, you should. It's going to be a great event, and bus is about a year old, and we're making progress as a workforce development initiative to bring the business community and Scottsdale schools and the community college all together. So anyway, I just wanted to, that's something we've been working hard on behind the scenes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. Mrs. Perleberg.
Just very quickly, Dr. Birdwell, Board Member Jackson and I need a note so we can have an excused absent from parent night at Saguaro. So if you can get that to us, I don't want an unexcused absent, so thank you.
And we apologize, we found out that was a conflict. We've asked our principals, and hence the reason I'd like principals to stay the entire board meeting, but we will get back to those who have left, that we do not schedule events on board nights if at all possible, please. Thank you.
I'm sure it went well.
Well, they're outed now. Okay, so with that, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye.